Welcome to Breaking Ground, Women in AEC Leadership Podcast. This is the show that lifts the voice, journeys, and insights of women shaping the future of architecture, engineering, and construction, and it's brought to you by Unanet. Unanet delivers expert project-based ERP solutions, CRM solutions, and an AI growth suite built specifically for AEC firms. At our core, we believe that a strong and diverse workforce drives innovation and success, and that women are essential to building the future of AEC. I'm your guest host for today, Alex Goby. In each episode, we connect with professionals across the AEC industry to share stories and hard-earned wisdom. This is more than a conversation. It's a community focused on growth and leading impact. So let's get started. Today, we're here live from Champions 2026 conference in sunny San Diego. And I'm here today with Nina Stenzler. Nina is a results-driven CRM lead at DPR Construction, where she leads enterprise customer intelligence. Through optimizing CRM performance and enabling data-driven sales and marketing workflows, her work contributes to improved pipeline visibility, shareholder alignment, and operational efficiencies that support revenue growth and client retention at scale. It's a pleasure to have you here today on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself and about DPR as well.
Sure. So I've been working for DPR Construction for almost 9 years now.
Okay.
I've had a little bit of a non-traditional path into construction. I mastered in library science, worked in a small library for a number of years, and had a friend who worked at DPR. We were gym buddies. She knew I was looking for the next step, and that DPR was trying to fill this role that she thought I might be good for. And I was not sure, but I thought, she's a friend, I'll give it a shot, see what happens during the interview process. And I got really excited during the interview. It just felt like it was going to be a really good fit for some of my natural, strengths. And I had to learn a lot, but I figured I'm not going to disqualify myself.
Totally.
So if they think I'm qualified, I'm in it. And I thought, I'm curious. I learn quickly. I'm not afraid of being wrong or asking questions. And that I thought it was going to be a good fit, and now here I am 9 years later. So
Wow.
it's been great. I love the job. There's always a problem to solve, and it's been really satisfying to sort of be in this place.
So much to unpack in that story. It's interesting how many women I interview, and they all, including myself, tend to have non-traditional paths. So I think there's something to be said for that, right?
I think it makes it less scary to think I need to graduate college and find the perfect career. Understanding that where you end up is not necessarily where you think you're going to. It can feel easier and less intimidating. I remember feeling like, what am I doing? And now I never would have envisioned myself here. But now that I'm here, it feels like the right spot.
It feels like the right spot, yeah. So let's go back to those libraries. How many years were you working in with library sciences, kind of?
So I ran a special collection library for 7 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it was a great job. I learned a lot.
Tell us a little bit about that. What are some things as a leader today that you go back on and you think, wow, that is actually something that I learned very early in my career?
I've told this story a couple of times recently, actually. When I was running the library, I used to write this newsletter once a month. Every time I would write it, the first person to respond was the same library patron. She'd be like, your grammar is wrong here. You have a spelling mistake here. This link doesn't work. And I was getting really irritated with that. And I got good advice from a colleague who was like, well, she's engaged. She's reading it.
That's true.
So have her edit it before you send it. And I was like, oh my God, that is genius. And I think I've utilized that a lot after that job, which is sometimes the people who are the noisiest, they're engaged.
And they care.
And they care, right?
Yeah.
So try to figure out how to take that and use it constructively.
That's a great lesson because, like you said, at the face value, it can be at first an irritant and kind of
like, oh, she keeps
you
pointing
put
out
yourself
everything I'm
down
doing wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a second.
And you reframe that, right?
Yeah. So the ability to take that detractor and turn them into an advocate, right, was like a really great life lesson.
Excellent.
So yeah, I've taken that and have you been able to recycle it into a lot of different scenarios. So that was a very important life lesson to learn.
Yep.
I think.
What about DPR? Like 9 years, right? At DPR.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about like how you started and where you are now in terms of responsibilities, and kind of maybe share one or two for our listeners, one or two lessons that you've learned along the way.
Sure. So I've always been involved in the CRM since starting with DPR, but the journey CRM has taken since I started has really sort of expanded.
Okay.
So when I started, the CRM system lived within the marketing and sales team. And a couple of years ago, we moved that technology over into IT, and it's now part of the enterprise technology team at DPR. Yep. And for me, it's that move and moving the technology into the like IT space.
More central support.
Yeah, but it was also like, it finally got the credibility it deserved of like being a critical system.
An enterprise system, right? Rather than just serving one or two functions.
And so I felt like for a long time, I was trying to explain the power that the data collected in the system could do for the business. And once we moved into IT, it was like, you know, and everything just kind of clicked into place at the right time, right? Like, the system became a lot more flexible because we were able to use API and a data warehouse. And so we were a lot less, we weren't as limited by the constraints of the system itself.
Yeah.
And so that in conjunction with moving into IT, like really just sort of accelerated the importance of what that system is collecting and how it can inform a lot of other decisions within the business.
It's an absolute critical system.
Right. And so now, like, there's a lot of ripple effect to what happens that when it starts in CRM. So we're connected to a lot of other downstream processes or, you know, internal workflows that need to happen, or, you know, and especially with forecasting work, right? The data that's being collected in there is really critical to it.
Absolutely. So how do you stay connected to all of the functions that the system now is supporting? I'm curious about that, right? Because you've got marketing that has their use cases and their challenges. Sales probably has their requirements.
Finance. Yeah. So social capital goes a really long way.
Okay, tell us more about that.
I think, you know, because I am just curious in nature, I've had to create a lot of relationships and build a lot of social capital with different parts of the business out of necessity. And those relationships have helped to drive my success, right?
Yep.
Because I'll hear about a tangentially related project and I'll ask a couple leading questions. And then all of a sudden I'm involved in that project. And so, but it's taken a really long time. And I'm not there with everything yet. But it's taken a long time to start building that up and to being like, I want a seat at the table before instead of after.
After, yeah.
And so helping to see the helping to create the message around the value I can bring when I'm brought in ahead of time has been something that I've had to sort of like learn along the way.
Well, and you call it like that social capital, right? That I think about leadership influence. And I think that is such an important lesson that we all learn along the way. Like when we first start our careers, we're just working on the scope that we're given. Then we might get into people management and have a functional area of responsibility. But for me, and I don't know if that's for you as well, that shift from being a manager to a leader is really about understanding that it's less about managing your team, but it is more about being a part of a leadership team that is driving to the priorities of the business and making the business successful rather than the function successful. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yes. And I think I'm starting to have the right seat at the table to be able to do that. And it's been exciting. I mean, and my journey into management has also, I'm still on the newer side of managing a team and learning how that works, how I want to show up as a manager, like how I want to be seen as a manager and as a leader. Like, you know, we talk a lot about like, what's our brand, right?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be?
What's your leadership brand, right?
Right. And like, what experience do I want other people to have with our team? And how do I help my team have a brand? Like, and what's that experience like? That's all, I don't know, it's a work in progress, but like, I feel like I'm starting to figure that out more and more.
Any particular tip or story you want to share there about what you've learned about yourself or what you know about yourself and have had to adjust?
Yeah. So as with most companies, I think those like personality assessments are popular, right? So DPR really likes the Enneagram. And so I learned about myself that I am an 8, which is the challenger persona, which, you know, when you read people like this are, and I'm like, check, 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 right? The bossy kid growing up. And I think in particular, the challenger can be a hard persona as a female. But I think I've learned a lot about how I show up and sometimes how that can be perceived.
Okay.
So I think understanding, and I don't think it's about changing who I am. I like being an 8. I like being the challenger.
Sure, it's probably made you very successful, right? To challenge and to probe,
right? And that's okay. But I think understanding how to take those parts of my personality and craft them to be constructive is a skill that I have built and I'm still building and probably will build forever.
Any particular advice? I'm just thinking about our listeners listening in and saying, "Oh, I have that challenge too, where I have a strength, right, that has played well for me, but there's moments where I probably need to dial it down and tap into something else." Any particular tip you can share?
Sure. It's silly, but like, I have like sort of a gut reaction to a lot of things. Or it's very clear how I'm feeling, right? My emotions run very close to the surface. Usually you can tell how I'm feeling based on the visual cues I'm giving. And I think particularly during COVID, I got feedback from a manager that was like, be careful about what you're doing on a video call because everyone can see you.
That's true. It's a lot more.
Right? And it's
sometimes in a room, people are looking at other things like a video right there. Yeah.
Right. So, and like, there's not the rest of your body to give context.
That's true.
So I think being more aware of how I show up is one thing. And I have to try to pause and let other people talk first. Yeah. Which is hard for me. Because I'm always like, and I want to like give my opinion or, you know, give a thought, but the better I'm getting about not talking first, I'm noticing that the way that other people hear me is received better.
Absolutely.
Right?
They've had the chance to let their piece out, and then you can synthesize and reflect on that, and then jump in.
Because I think in the beginning of my journey, like I was just so quick to solve the problem or so quick to have the answer, and sometimes that would like turn people off immediately, whether I was right or wrong. Yeah. It was just like, that wasn't the...
You're not creating that connection, right?
I wasn't giving space for the other person to be heard. Yeah. And that's important.
So I have to ask, because there's a little bit of a repeat there with the person that gave you that feedback on video. How did you first respond to that? Was that perceived as irritated at first? Or because that's somebody who's very well, it sounds like it's someone who was very vested in your success. Yeah. And I personally really appreciate, even though it's hard to get criticism, I always think about like, actually that person means well and I need to hear it, right?
Feedback I think is really interesting. And for me in particular, like, if someone's not ready to hear it, it's not going to land well.
That's true.
So I think there are 2 elements to this. One, I am lucky enough to work with people who I have a lot of trust with.
Yep.
So when they give feedback that might be harder to hear, I already have a trust established. So
That's so important.
I know that it's not being nitpicky, right? It's coming from like this place where they're not saying it because they think I'm bad at my job or, they're not pointing out my faults. They're trying to help me rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
But I think also because I felt like I was sort of like hungry for that feedback because I felt like I didn't know what I was doing in this new role. And I was like, I want to be better. I want to be good at my job.
So you were open for it.
I was ready for
You were
feedback
ready
too.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also helped that like I became a new mom at the time that I was sort of like going in this leadership journey. So I felt like I knew nothing about anything in my life. So I was like, please just tell me what to do.
We're always figuring that one out for sure.
Someone tell me, do you have the answer? Because I don't know. So, so it was like in all aspects of my life, I was sort of like looking for coaching or mentoring.
Yeah.
It was a good, like the stars kind of aligned.
Great.
But I have gotten feedback from people who I do not have a good trust
And that's
or
harder.
foundation. And I do not want to hear what they have to say. Whether it's valid or not.
So the importance of building trust first. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's so foundational. I could talk to you for hours, literally. I love your journey. I love your story. I think you've got so much to share for, anyone listening in. Amazing, journey so far, and hope to have another conversation again pretty soon. So thank you again for sharing with us today. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today on Breaking Ground, Women in AEC Leadership. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to follow, leave a review, or share it with someone in your network. And as always, keep breaking new ground.